Hi, I'm Cassiano Costa here at Costa Performance in Boca Raton, Florida. We have our nice training facility here with a combination of athletes in different levels and age. We try to create a very nice environment, a family environment type, but it's still developing the main characteristics and qualities needs for any athlete to succeed. Being different sports, obviously, mainly our direction here is following the racket sports through tennis, squash, pickleball, paddle, but we serve the community throughout all our sports. A beautiful thing we have here is the variety of coaches we have from different backgrounds, different countries, and more important, different experience in the different sports. So when the subject is diversity, we are quite developed in our house. When you see, we not only have the athletes that are pursuing the dream of being professional or becoming a college athlete, we also have some of the parents that are, come here, bring their student athletes and ended up doing preparation for their own leagues, their own sports. Now that you know about our company here, I invite you to take a look on our channel. So ideally, we're gonna be serving the community throughout all these type of videos. So educational, that will help you, just regular continuing education, understanding biomechanics of the training, biomechanics of the sports that we are more used to train, the physiological aspect, the type of exercises that can be important. We're gonna detail some important exercises. Very importantly, we're gonna talk about the injuries, prevention of the injury, the rehabilitation of the injury. So everything that all our professionals here, we have physical therapists, strength and conditioning coaches, nutritionists. Obviously, we're going to talk about diet and supplements for athletes.
How's it going, guys? This is Sebastian here with Costa Performance. In today's video, we are going to be discussing running, some of the positives, negatives, and also the ways that we use it here at Costa Performance and implement it into our training. So I'll start with the why we do it. So there's a lot of reasons why we implement running here into the program at Costa Performance. Now, a lot of times we don't necessarily put it into a sense of track workouts or going to a field and doing running. It is more from a mechanical standpoint. So there are a lot of really good benefits that we can get from running, such as foot and ankle dexterity and strength, which are super important for tennis, for being able to plant and push very quickly from the court, and incorporating change of direction into what we do. So one of the big things that we think about here is in the aspects of coordination as well. So we're introducing this movement to them, and from a mechanical standpoint, to really work on hip flexion, hip extension, and also triple extension, which is one of the basics of force development for a lot of our athletes. So we use our running mechanics as more of a way, as a way to crawl before you can walk, before you can run. In order to understand how to move well side to side, we have to understand and master those basics from a linear or forward and backward standpoint. There's also a lot of movement forward and backward in tennis, so we also gain some benefit from that as well. And like I had mentioned, sprinting is one of the most basic ways to increase power and force development. Now, talking about sprinting, this does not mean we're going out and running 400s, or not even necessarily going out and running 100s, okay? Most of the energy systems that we have to develop in tennis, what the research is showing, is between 5 to 12 seconds, which covers all of the surfaces, so between hard court, grass, and clay court, as well as kind of the different age ranges and genders as well. Yes, there are points that are outliers to that. Yes, Novak Djokovic and Roger Federer and Nadal, they've always played points that are almost a minute long and, couple tens of, rallies and whatever it may be. But what the basic research shows us is that it's anywhere between 5 and 12 seconds, okay? I don't know if any of you guys are good with your track knowledge, but Usain Bolt runs 110 seconds. Most of us can't get to that. So that's why we like to sit a little bit lower than that 100-meter mark, especially when we're talking about energy system development. I'm gonna touch back on that later. So now let's talk about the why nots. Why don't we do a lot of those 400-meter workouts? Why don't we take our athletes more to the tracks, and why don't we do that? One, it's from a logistical standpoint. I can do a lot more here in the gym than I can at a track. Now, are there benefits from doing track workouts? Absolutely. But let's talk about those a little bit as well. So you'll say a lot of times, oh, running helps increase VO2 max. Okay, I'm okay with that. Where's the research to show that VO2 max helps with performance? Specifically tennis. There isn't any out there. Now, what you could say to that, well, a good VO2 max means you can aid yourself in recovery. Absolutely, I agree with you. But did you know that long distance runners and repetitive runners also are one of the higher risk populations for anemia? which means that they're damaging their red blood cells, which means they can't carry as much oxygen into their muscles to help themselves recover. So is it really the best tool that we can use? So that high impact of going out and running lap after lap after lap after lap can sometimes be a little bit detrimental to our athletes' recovery. Now, again, can doing some more longer periods of cardiovascular activity help us out a lot for recovery? Absolutely. Get our skeletal muscle pumps pumping that blood flowing is always number one for recovery. Absolutely. Would swimming or more low impact kind of environments be a little bit more advantageous for recovery? It's in our opinion that that's the case. So a lot of times if we're having our athletes do it for more of a recovery standpoint, biking, what you see a lot of the athletes do post matches at the Grand Slams, elliptical, like I said, swimming, even going for a nice long walk on the beach, excellent ways to aid in recovery. Okay. Now, another thing that we always hear a lot about, kind of those longer, more high intensity sprint workouts and whatever it may be that you see, is it's a good mental toughness thing. I couldn't agree more with you. I think that putting someone into the ground, I think that running a 400 meter repeat 400s is one of the most high intensity things and grueling things that you can do, especially outside in this Florida heat. I cannot agree with you more there. But is it worth the risk? That's kind of the thing that we always go back to. So if we're looking at energy system development, helping the athlete become a better performer on the court and helping them become more mentally tough, we like to implement more sport-specific tools for that conditioning, such as spider drills out on the tennis court, repeated sprints on the tennis court, so it's a shorter distance with lots of changes of direction, right? That's what tennis is. It's a short sprint, change of direction, short sprint, change of direction, not 400 meters, 100 meters, whatever it may be. That's not how tennis works, okay? So that's another big thing that we like to think about here. Now, to end this, one important thing that I want to bring up is something that I've kind of heard through the grapevine. I may be getting this wrong, but it's kind of called the swimmer theory. So the idea of this theory is, does a swimmer, think about Michael Phelps, Katie Ledecky, whoever it may be, do they have that physique because they swim, or do they swim because they have that physique? There's a lot of things out there on social media now. Everyone likes to post whatever it may be, the best vacation, the best meal, the best exercises that they've done. But a lot of times we have to take a step back and say, okay, are they doing that because they're capable of doing it and their body allows them to do that? Or is it the other way around? Just kind of some food for thought. So again, running, very, very good for athletes. I think there's a lot of benefits, but I just think that we have to be a little bit careful in how we prescribe it to a lot of our athletes.
A main component of a good strength and conditioning program, when we're talking about racket sports and more specifically tennis, is the reaction. It's a good interaction between the neurologic and the muscular skeletal pathway. So all that we can produce, all that we can recognize, select and produce comes out in terms of movement, comes out when we are debating reaction. You can see through the videos that we have two different components, which is the hand-eye connection, foot-eye connection. Both are involved on the sport because, to do the first step, to do the adjustment steps, everything will depend on what we are tracking. And same for shot selection and then type of spin, etc. When you see the great players, what they do is they anticipate, so they recognize that a stimuli slightly earlier than their opponents. So with that, they can be on a good stance, be with good spacing between racket and ball, and with that select the best shot possible. So reaction, although sometimes missed in some of the programs, it's a very important component. It's not hard to be trained. We'll show some videos that we got some devices that are cool. They are very engaging, but you can work on reaction as simple as you're hitting, trying to track a different number, let's say, and then have to do a posteriori action. So you probably saw across the internet different warm-ups utilized by the high-performance players. Iga Swiatek recently showed different combinations using tennis balls or devices like this, where your coach can throw and select the color that you should catch, again stimulating the hand-eye coordination. We have a very simple drill that literally we throw cones on the athlete and he has to swerve, so combining a lot of the visual recognition and the movement interaction. So again, it's a very, very important capacity to be stimulated, especially in sports where the ball comes in such high velocity.
Okay,
now we're gonna talk a part of the training that is as important as the regular strength and conditioning, which is the mental control, the mental development. In sports, the athletes are requested to make decisions at a very high speed under a very stressful environment. Pretty much like some important business people, soldiers at war. So you gotta make sure that the mind has some clarity and proper functioning to make a good selection, to make the use of the best option possible to solve your own problem. Now, with the help of some of the colleagues on the mental conditioning and psychology field, one strategy that became very popular is the mindfulness and the use of meditation to achieve that. Obviously, when you think about meditation, you see the figure of Buddha sitting with the crossed legs and the hands up and the big Om behind him. But meditation is more than this. Meditation is a strategy that is used under different modalities to achieve a neutral stage of thinking. So with that, we do believe the athlete has the chance of making the selection of their shot or the selection of their strategy, or at least do not let emotion penetrate on his own environment in order to damage his or her performance. Now, obviously, you will find in some app stores different types of apps that can use guided meditation, but I do believe, and we facilitate here for our athletes, the use of whatever it works for them. That could be the use of certain style of songs that let them more relaxed. That could be use of watching something that provide them calm and lower speed, to listen a type of music that brings a more calm state for the athlete. So one strategy that is easier and more reproducible is the control of one's breath. Okay, so the breathing flow, not being anxious, not being in high frequency, because in sports, not only that stress, that a mental stress of having to perform immediately and at high level, but also the physical stress. Let's say, for example, tennis and squash, long games, long points. In soccer, lots of change of direction. Volleyball, lots of jumping, attacking. Surfing, lots of rotation, paddling. So there is a physical component that also changes the way one is breathing. And as studies have shown, the association between the breathing stage or the breathing way and the way the heart is going to react and the way the mind is going to react are very intimately linked. So it's important that if you can, starting by controlling the breathing, controlling the breath, giving that a more normal pattern, you see that, the mind has more clarity now. The mind has the space and time to think on, the problem is being presented to you. So again, the reason why we're saying that is just to take away that idea of the meditation being that Eastern thing where only people with legs crossed can do. But meditation is actually to create that mindfulness, which means the event that is about to happen is not touching negatively. The event that just happened also will not touch you negatively because now you're more present on the strategy you need to do. So I'm going to give an example of a sport that we are working more often here in tennis, right? So player goes there, he's going to serve in a stressful situation. Let's say he's about to close the set against a tough opponent. He's 5-4, 40-30, so that serve is very important for him. It goes across a lot of players' mind, what if I do a double fault? What if the guy now return the ball like a winner? What if the guy always do a good backhand return, so and I try to go to the forehand and he will anticipate. So many things, many thoughts that will impair the basics of I need to toss the ball properly, I need to reach the ball at its peak, I need to angle the ball the way I've been training in the past, and let's go see what happens. Right? At the end of the day, if you see that those great players, they have their stress, they have their fears, but they manage. And in the important points, majority of them, you see that they're locked in one mission. So that meditation, that a clarity, that a mindfulness is to bring no interference of the environment, no interference of external thought in order to promote what we can do at the time in one action that can guarantee success. Again, so back on that situation, you're on the first serve, everything is going on. Now, what if as I'm controlling my breathing, as my mind calms down a little bit, I visualize what is about to happen in terms of this is what I need to do technique-wise. And I still fail the first serve. A bunch of players will get frustrated and go very fearful to the second serve. And that already is taking away a big possibility of them on being successful on that stroke. So why not to create strategies that are gonna lower the brain activity, that are gonna put like a more mindfulness on that moment, and that are gonna guarantee a higher chance of the player being successful on the shot. So we can be longer on that subject and we can debate more on strategies or ways to meditate. But as a final thought here, I would recommend, if you are interested, to obviously contact us through our channels, YouTube or Instagram, but to experience simple breathing control exercises that start developing that meditation process, that start developing clarity on the mind. I'm gonna give you 3 ideas for you guys here. Number 1 is the tempo breathing, which is the amount of time inhaling, is the amount of time holding the breath, and is the amount of time exhaling. So pretty much, let's say I'm gonna do a 4 seconds to not be so long. So inhale for 4 seconds. Hold for 4 seconds. And now exhale for 4 seconds. The way the air gonna flow through your lungs, the way the diaphragm, the way the back muscles will work on that necessarily start bringing a tiny bit of more relaxation for the muscles. Yeah, you don't wanna be super relaxed to perform, but you also don't wanna be super tight that you can barely move, okay? Exercise 2, which is the use of the different nostrils. Sometimes we are getting more air in one side than the other, so you try to control that flow. You put the mindfulness in one action and start putting the stress away. So you hold one side of the nostril, let's say I go 4 seconds. And now I hold the other side and I exhale into this side, and so on, alternating. Last but not least, rhythmic breathing, which, let's say you think of a beat, you think of a music, you think of something that you like it, and you try to put the inhale and exhale on that tone. So I'll think of the beat. In Brazil is very popular, the funk music, which is ta 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 ta. So I go. So not only I'm giving the chance of my heart rate to maybe reduce a little bit, of my breathing to be controlled, but I'm also distracted with something else. So now my head is not back on that fear and anxiety that can be damaged, that can be harmful for the stroke. Hope you guys.
All right, guys. So today we're talking about footwork, the importance of footwork in all sports. Obviously, tennis is one of the sports has been talked so much regarding it. The fact that involves lots of movements, multi-direction, and tracking an implement. But all the court sports rely on that type of motion. So a good footwork session should involve a few parts, okay? So what we understand for footwork is, so first is to recognize the action previous to your reaction, okay? Once you recognize, you elaborate the process, and then the process is initiated with a movement. Some sports will be type of a split step, kind of a hop. Some sports will be an attacking step, so-called first step. Some sports will be a turn, rotation of the hip and or trunk. After that, you have a sequence of steps that are conduct all the way to the action, deceleration, adjustment steps, and then you finalize with the action you take. So in soccer, for example, which I'm originally an athlete or an ex-athlete for, we have normally time, calculate the time with the acceleration of the ball towards player to then perform a action, which differs, for example, from tennis, which in tennis you go for the ball, you don't wait really the ball for you. In soccer, sometimes you have the time, and the best option is to wait for the ball and then you react. So reason I'm saying these differences is we gotta create a proper spacing for the action itself. So majority of the times, footwork is not only how well you move towards your action, but also how well at the end of the footwork you create the proper spacing regarding the technical action you're going to provide. Now, I think it was pretty positive for me personally to have played professional at the highest level and understand what good movement was. I wasn't like the most skillful player in the world, so I had to rely a lot on the speed and the change of direction. And that perception involved on that change of direction is very common action in a good footwork. So understanding that and then understanding the timing and the spacing for other sports, you can really develop nice programs and nice drills that require footwork. So footwork involves good foot-eye coordination, good balance, good hip and ankle stability, good proprioception, the awareness of the position of your joints and the body in relation to the environment, good tracking, because you're tracking some type of implement, being a tennis ball, a soccer ball, a basketball, whatever you're doing. Last but not least, proper spacing. Again, it's very specific. Sometimes you see drills that they can be good for a certain sport, but not necessarily. Obviously, the foundation is pretty similar, but the specificity requires a lot of understanding of the type of movement and the type of action required for a determined sport.